can I get you to give a huge round of applause, small round of applause, to Muriel Grey, who's kindly come to kind of do more of a keynote speech for us today and talk about your own experience with transitions with your daughter. So thanks very much.
Actually, everything you've said is just completely what I thought I wasn't going to do. Apparently, I'm opening this, just found that out. And also, I was going to do a question and answer thing, so although Scott said keep your questions till later, don't. I'm going to kick off. I've made an executive decision about the Twitter tag. So I've put in the controversial tag Scottish Transition Forum. I'm going to start taking a selfie. So everybody, okay, try and look cheery, right? Oh, come on, you're getting that. That's absolutely rubbish. Okay, right, I'm trying to everyone get in, right, okay? Ready? And when I say 1, 2, 3, put your hands up. 1, 2, 3. There you are. Right, okay. Wow, I'm glad to see you here, because the only reason I'm here is because I have been through transition. Our daughter, Rowan, attends Sense Touch Base, which she loves and we love as well. She's 19, so her transition happened a couple of years ago. And one of the things that has amazed me is all of you. I had no idea anyone was involved in transition, because before we got to we don't call it transition, we call it being kicked out of school. That's really how we saw it. We didn't even have the word transition. It was just like, right, you know, sling your hook, we're not paying for this anymore. And it was quite simply the most stressful, dreadful experience I've ever had. And the only people that helped us at all to do anything was Panis, I have to say. If it hadn't been for Panis, I wouldn't have known even about guardianship. I wouldn't have known about, you know, funding for Rowan's care. I wouldn't have known about anything at all. I didn't know Sense existed. I didn't know about any of the places that she could have gone, because nobody else came anywhere near us. It was just Panis and Panis alone. So, and admirable as that is, Panis, as I understand it, you're a charity, aren't you? Just yeah. So it's no government help, no official help, nothing whatsoever. Because all the time, our daughter, just very, very briefly, had very severe cerebral palsy. She drowned in a garden pond when she was 2, so she doesn't have any communication, and she has no physical mobility at all. She's tube fed, double incontinent, blah blah blah. So we've never had a social worker involved. We've never had an OT. We've never had a physio. We've never had anything for the last 17 years. So we've just sort of done it ourselves, really. And she's attended a couple of really lovely schools, Milton, up on Keppoch campus, and so on. All of which have been lovely experiences, because of course people in these schools are under-resourced, but they're massively enthusiastic, and you get to know everybody over the years, as you do. You get to know the parents, you get to know the children. Then suddenly, this meeting was called at Milton. I mean, again, the parents, you can just have a show of hands who are carers and parents rather than professionals. Right, I'm talking to you. I know, absolutely. Well, you'll know that we're the type of people, we're in a very special club where we do not think about the future. Because if you sat and thought about the future, you'd stop functioning. We live day by day. Am I right? You do. Because that's the way you get through life, really, is you just appreciate every day. It's very, very special circumstances that most other people with able-bodied children don't understand. So when it comes to being kicked out of schools, I'm going to call it from now on, you haven't planned ahead, because A, you didn't think it was coming. Some of us might not even have thought our children would have survived that long, if they've got particularly complex needs. You certainly haven't made any kind of provision for what's going to happen. And then suddenly, whack, there's one meeting, which there was at Milton School, telling us all this stuff that we'd have to do, that it hadn't even occurred to me that as Rowan's mum and dad, we would have to apply to become her guardians because she was about to become an adult. That had never come up, and apparently we should have done that the year before they left, which again was news to me. Never thought about mobility, but transport had been provided up until that point to get to and from school. Never thought about whether she could live independently or not. None of this had ever been addressed before. Now, you could say that's our fault because it's our normal parents, but we're quite lucky in our family. I mean, we're the benefit of, relatively good education. We're, we're a two-parent family, which a lot of people with disabilities are usually a one-parent family because of, difficulties. They're usually economically and socially isolated. They have difficulties about someone being, an advocate for them. We had none of those difficulties particularly, and yet we still found it absolutely baffling, terrifying, and impossible. And if it hadn't been for good old Panis, as I say, I wouldn't have been able to do anything. Now, so the first thing that anybody who addresses a group of parents like that will meet is usually hostility, am I right? There's usually a sort of feeling of hostility in the room because you feel shortchanged and you're surprised. And so any professionals addressing a group of parents who are about to, sort of have transition launched upon that will probably find it quite an aggressive group. Because the other thing is, we're really emotional. I was massively emotional. It was about, you have to, I just don't want to get too philosophical about this, but it's the first time for lots of parents and carers and guardians where they consider mortality. Because you suddenly think, I'm not going to be here forever. And up until that point, you've just been a parent of perhaps quite a young child and been dealing with all those things that are difficult. And then suddenly you have to think, oh wow, I'm actually going to be dead someday, and this person is going to have to be looked after. How on earth are you going to be looked after as well as I do it? So you have all those complications to deal with, and it's very, very difficult. And so I so don't want this to be negative, because I'm so excited you're all here together. The lovely lady in the screen side there, told me it's something that she's been doing for 10 years. I had even no idea you were doing that. You all represent things, organisations, and part of the public sector that I've never heard of you before. No idea you existed, because there is no one streaming place we can go to and go, well, that's where you go for this. And I think one of the difficulties we're discussing is because it's not like diabetes or something like that. It's, young people, children with special needs have very, very different. Each one's an individual. One might have learning difficulties, one might have, difficulty with hearing or sight, and one with mobility, whatever. It's really difficult to try and make that a homogenous group. But it seems so logical to me that regardless of their individual disabilities and abilities, the transition could easily be homogenous. It doesn't seem to me to be mad that you can't actually say, here are the steps. I mean, there's other things that Scott had put up there. And like, what a wish list is like. I do wish there were unicorns as well. It's like, I mean, they're gorgeous principles, but I mean, I could go through them another one and go, well, that doesn't work. Well, that doesn't work. And so that, it just doesn't work, because social work, for instance, they're under such pressure. They're under such pressure, and it's not just all about us. They've got, the whole society's problems to look after. In fact, our bath doesn't work, isn't really up high up on their priorities. And I remember saying this to a parent way back in Milton, where her main problem was, and she's just about to go through transition, herself, and her daughter Marianne had really complex needs, including, really difficult pain management, which for a young person is the worst thing ever. And all Marianne's mum wanted to do was to be able to go to the supermarket for half an hour without having to take Marianne. So it took her 3 hours to get her ready. It was painful for Marianne. And she said she had a meeting one day where she came to 21 professionals in the room. 21 professionals. She said, just one of you babysit for an hour. I'd be really happy. But in fact, it was a 3-hour meeting with professionals. And at the end of that 3-hour meeting with professionals, nothing happens. Absolutely nothing happens at all. So I don't know how you fix that, because I have no idea who the hell you all are. That's the whole point. Who are you? What do you do? Where do you live? Where's your office? Who do I phone? Because so when you get a social working meeting, you get all these people turning up, and then you never see them again. And but that's why if you have an organisation like Panis, I'm not a shareholder in Panis, by the way. It's just they're the only people that help me. One could say, I'm really going to Liz help me all the way through. And if you don't have, like, an agent, that's what I would call them an agent. They pointed me to social work. I didn't have a social worker. She pointed me to that. She said, oh, you realise that actually you can translate your mobility allowance into a card? Wow, it's amazing. You realise you can do this, you realise you can do that. And then also secretly said, because I'm not allowed to suggest where would be good for Rowan, but have you checked Sense, Touch Base? So without any of that help, I person who has enjoyed really exciting, vibrant, you know, stimulating school days, who is right now sitting at home with a depressed parent, not doing anything and not even remotely aware of all the things that are out there for that person. And they've probably got their personal allowance sorted out, because that's a kind of, you know, sort of a governmental necessity. But apart from that, they won't have any idea about the things that are available for them at all. They might not even know about guardianship, but they might have had to obviously do it in order to do sort of personal allowance. But these are really important things. And again, I've never heard of GSIL before, and financially, which of course is that's another, you know, it's an agency that helps you manage the finances of the young person who's now an adult. So if I have any message to say to you is, if you are here representing a charity or a government organisation or a health provider, you have to tell us who you are. Why have I never heard of you before? How do I know who you are? How do I know where to access your help? How do I know where to access your support? What is it that you do for us? Now, obviously, I'm going to find out here, but that's because I'm at a conference. But, you know, all the people I've known that are, you know, around as little, you know, the parents of her wee mates, most of them live in really deprived circumstances. They don't have access to this kind of thing. And, you know, they don't really, you know, they don't mix. Like I say, they become socially and economically and educationally isolated just because of the nature of what they have to put up with. So it's kind of your job, really, not lecturing you, but it's kind of your job to not talk amongst yourselves, frankly, which this is, and it's great. I mean, you just can't do that. You've actually got to get out there, try and find some way of communicating the support mechanisms that are there, the advice and the guidance that you can offer people who are going to spend the rest of our lives looking after and caring for somebody with special needs. Now, austerity is kicking in, it's not going to get any better. These resources are going to get smaller all the time. So it's so much more important that you focus your abilities and you actually focus your support groups so that you can actually be one body with many arms that can help people like our young folk. If you don't do that, if it's piecemeal, if it's bitty, it's just going to end up like us not knowing what the hell we're doing. Because when you see young people in particular, again, I'm picking up Sense Touch, which is absolutely fantastic. When you see something like this run so well, it is so life-affirming. You can see young people coming to an institution like this, just having the time of their life, having every need addressed, they make friends, they're stimulated, you know, they're monitored. It's just brilliant. And in a way, in a kind of sort of abstract way, you have to be that as a kind of iCloud of support, and you have to be doing that at every level of your organisation. It's really, and just keep in mind that I never cry, ever. I decided, you know, when Rowan drowned, if I ever cried, I'd never stop crying. So I never cry, ever. And the only time I have cried, I think the last, you know, million years, was at that transition meeting at the school. Because as I say, I didn't see it coming, it flew under my radar. And only Paris comforted me. Everybody else rolled their eyes. Because the other thing you have to remember is your case hardened, but you're not. You see it every day, you know, it's another thing to go through. Well, to us, it's our daughter, our son. It's the only one we have. It's the only life we have. And it's the only thing that's happened to us that way. But I know you see a million of them. So hard as it is, try and keep that in mind. I'm going to just finish and let anybody ask a question, which is like, why are you here, you cow? Because anything I've said, I don't want to surrender anything, so if anybody's got anything to say, please ask me. And not like, what's the biggest fish in the sea? I did a huge talk once for young people in the media, and the only question I got was, where did you get a handbag? So upset. No.
Any questions at all?
No, you see, you should have loads. Oh, yes. Can you say who you are?
Yes, I'm Dagmar Kerr from Action for Sick Children Scotland.
Right.
Mike, two questions. One, do you think you didn't have a social worker because you were coping quite well? Social work tends to step in at crisis point, and I'm a parent as well of a complex child, so we didn't have a social worker until we reached a crisis point. And the other question is, do you not think that a school like the one your daughter attended has an important role in telling you about all of us?
Yeah, no, two good questions. Yeah, that's the first question is yes. We didn't have a social worker, not because we were into crisis support, because we're very private, and didn't actually fancy any interference from anybody else. We could have, not terrible, now that we do have one, I'm not sure it would have made any difference actually, because darling as the social worker is, you know, it's social work, emotional work really, it doesn't really help you very much. Secondly, they did do the one meeting, which is when we were introduced to panels, but yes, I think that was a role that wasn't particularly well done because this was a very under-resourced school. And it was a school with absolute down on its uppers, and I don't blame them for this at all. Again, you know, we're watching all around us while gorgeous new primary schools were going up all over the place for able-bodied children, and my daughter was in this series of damp porta cabins with, you know, 3 people who were just back at work after a hip operation doing their best. So there's no money, and so it's a bit unfair to blame the school for that. I mean, I blame the funders of the school for not doing that. But you're absolutely right. It is the school's responsibility to get you ready for that, and they didn't.
Shall we say thank you?
Yeah, what a fascinating talk. They can hardly hold themselves back.
Next up, we have microphone. Might help. Does it just automatically go on? Fading in.
I'd just like to introduce itself and then just get questions after the 3 presentations. You can come and see myself or any of the 3 presenters.
Are they all on video? Yes. So the next presentation is by Sense Scotland, and you will see in your packs that it's around, is it 3 young people that on 3 transitions with Sense Scotland? And I think it's very much going to chime with what Muriel was talking about in some ways, I think. So we'll just let it roll. Is there sound?
So Lee, can you tell us a wee bit about your daughter Danielle?
Danielle is 19 years of age, and to look at Danielle, even though she had a disability, so it's really hidden disabilities, but as soon as Danielle starts speaking, that's when you realise that she's got a learning disability. Main problems that we did have with the transition that impacted on Danielle was on health. We all got health issues. She became quite sort of upset